Here we go, and off they went. And remember that when we're talking about promise now, we're not focusing so much on breaking promise and what happens when we break a promise and the need to be faithful in promise and things like that. We're talking about promise more in the sense of by having the promise, it gives us a way to live into something. It gives us that faith that we need to step forth. You know what I mean? In other words, without the promise that there's a step beneath me, I'm not going to want to, right? So there are many ways in life that you need to have that promise to be able to make the step to go forward. In relationships, you got to have the promise of love in order to take that step into risking intimacy, right? You got to have that promise. And so that's what we're continuing to talk about today, because here again, now it's not Noah, it's Abraham. We hear once more, God promised. And this time, what's the promise? We've got these two folks who are so old.
How old are they?
I was waiting to see if anybody remembered that line, but okay. How old were they? Well, thank you. They were so old that the thought of their having children was a laughing matter to any and everybody. And they were worn out and tired. They tried, and old Abraham had been able to have a child with one of his Sarah's handmaids, but it just wasn't working with Sarah. And so by this time, they'd probably given up. And along comes God, and God says, I promise that you, Abraham, you, Sarah, are going to be parents. And not only are you going to be parents, but you're going to have so many kids that their kids and their kids and their kids are going to go on and on and on and on. And some of them are even going to be important people like kings, and they're going to lead your people. Imagine that kind of promise. Wow! Well, here's the kicker. What's good is a promise if you don't live into it. You know what I mean? What good's a promise if you don't take advantage of it? And that's the kicker. Here's God making all these promises. And it's up to us then to be ready to live into those promises. And so what Abraham and Sarah do? We're adults here, right? They lived into the promise, didn't they? The Bible does not say that Sarah conceived immaculately. They lived into the promise. All right. That's what we're talking about. Whatever it is, if God gives you that promise, that's our response. I can't believe I'm up here doing this. My mom's sitting in the back. The things God sends us through, I don't believe. But that's how important it is, that when God gives you that promise, it's time to live into it. And so that, in some sense, is what the disciples were doing when Jesus comes and everybody says, this is the one. This is God's new promise. Here it is, in this Jesus. He's the one. Follow Him. And so they were. They were doing their best now to live into the promise. And what was the promise? The promise, as they perceived it, was that God was going to come and finally deliver them. And that meant deliver to them, deliver them from the Romans. Oh boy, here we go.